you can see this page. Okay, so if it's possible for you to join this synoptic webinar, or to look at this synoptic webinar page, so I will do that again. So we go home, and assuming I've got the link right, I hit week 4, and then I go to this page. Otherwise, I emailed it out to everyone, I think. Please sign in on this page as you join the webinar. So that actually means that I actually end up with knowing who came and who didn't, and also it gets recorded on Canvas. So David's done it, Beth's done it, well done. So Charles and Chris. If you could do that, so you could work out how to sign in, but I'll carry on anyway, as we've hit 7 minutes past. So what am I meant to be doing? Okay, sign on the register, turn on the recording. Now, have I turned on the recording? An interesting question. I think I have. The only problem with this software is you can't see the button when you start the share. So more. End meeting, pause recording, stop recording. So I have started the recording, that is good. Okay, a review of last week's activities. So thank you for everyone participating in last week's activities. So what was I going to, so last week's activities are here. I'm going to go home and I'm going to go teaching week 3. So particularly I had a good look at everyone looking into disk storage. That was, I think, quite useful, and there's a Google spreadsheet. So thank you for everyone filling that out. I put the odd comment in, and I've actually found it very interesting. No one can probably see that, but there's a variety of the amount of disk space for the organization. So for Anglia Ruskin on the old system, that actually now we are going for, we have now got Microsoft OneDrive. I was amazed to see they had 50 gigabytes of storage for all staff data in a collective sense, which is a lot smaller than 90 terabytes or 60 petabytes. But yeah, I think that shows you the difference between the technologies. Good. Okay, and then what was I going to tell you? So yes, so this is useful, and then I saw some information here. There is various technologies, of which Azure and AWS is a online service. Network File Systems, NFS, is the standard way that things are put together. And then actually I start to get technology that I'm not familiar with, and I probably should look into Luster and iRods and Ceph. But what I did was just thinking about this. I don't know, this may all be fairly obvious to you, but let's have a look. Okay, let me see this, and then I should be able to hit this button somewhere. Okay, and I then have to say what this is. So I produced something. I looked at, so disks and file systems. I thought that might be quite useful because the odd person was confused by things. So disk quotas. So disk quotas are a means of controlling the storage space available to each user. So on your laptop, you don't, it would be unusual to have a quota, but if you're sharing the disk between lots of users, you normally have a quota system, okay? And on Linux or OS 10, so I don't know whether I come on tab, I do that, probably I can go over there. Yeah, I could do. I'm going to try moving that over there. So quota is installed in by default for in this is a Mac, but it's not actually active. Okay, so we haven't set it up. I'm sure it would be possible to do so, but what you can do is on the Linux command line, you can do man quota, okay? And it's quite useful to make sure that you know something about a quota that you have. And so quota minus V is the standard one. Most Linux quotas have minus H to put the disk usage in human units. So one thing you might find, certainly in the old days, it always came out as blocks. And a block is half a kilobyte. This is immensely confusing. And now we've got enormous file systems. It must be awful to see that. So often it was quite confusing. But what happens is when you start reaching your quota, and so when you start reaching your quota, it will say you've reached your quota somewhere, and then you sometimes then have a flexibility. It will warn you, and you're allowed to do a bit extra. It's a good idea to check you know about your quotas to make sure you don't hit the quota limit and stop yourself being able to do work just when it's really important that you actually get something out, because that's how life will always work. But the other thing I would say is don't ask for a quota increase before checking where your work data sets are meant to be stored. Yeah. So for the system point of view, unfortunately, Kieran hasn't joined us because he's a systems guy now. But from the systems point of view, the right solution for I need more quota to do my work is go and read the documentation which says where you should be putting your work. Okay. Okay. Oh, and the other thing I did, which was maybe silly, but let's see whether this works. Zoom. Oh, I suppose it'd be just easier to bung it up here. So can people presumably see me? If so, actually, if I say stop share, then you see me big. Yeah, it'd be easier to probably do this. Okay, so I'm going to see me. I don't know. Oh yes, I'm seeing me big. Okay, so I was just going to show you. So there's some SSD technologies in your laptops. It will be about that big little thing. This is, in fact, actually, let's try to do it in the phone. Start video. Okay, and then I change the video around. And then I'm going to block. Well, the only problem now I can't really see. So if I say that one, and I say pin video, stop video. Okay. Make host? Oh, I don't know. No, I don't know. Don't think that's the right thing to do. How do I change it? I think I might just wait. I'll tell you what, by far the easiest way, if I pick this up and then I just do that, that would be far easier. This is a small hard disk from an old laptop. Ones in your one will probably be about that form factor. This is an old disk which spins. So in the old days we used to have hard disks which would all hard disks had a spin, and it's probably easier to see on this one. This is a desktop 5¼ inch one, and there'll be a spindle in there with lots of magnetic stuff. This is a 1 terabyte old hard disk, must be 6 or 7 years old. One problem behind this, particularly in laptops, is they're mechanically extremely sensitive. So if you drop your laptop in a train or you moved it, that could be quite disastrous. There was technology for when the disk was inactive for the read heads to move away so that they wouldn't, sorry, I should be looking at that, shouldn't I? They wouldn't stick if they wouldn't bash, so the read heads would bash into the disk and then you would lose data, and file systems would often be able to recover from that. But in the old days, I have actually once when I was a systems person in Birmingham, had to talk to the support people in the US when the disk on our main server went 2 days before Christmas, and I had to take the hard disk out and strike it hard on the floor. And I was instructed on the phone to do it in the right way so that that disk would, the head would unweld itself from the magnetic medium. We were losing email at the time, and then I had to go to Birmingham Airport to go and pick up a replacement disk. Do not take systems responsibility unless you have to. It's a little professional thing. But anyway, so that's something about disk. Oh, the other disk, I did have one other disk, and that is how a 300 gigabyte form factor disk looked. Well, I don't know how old that is, about 10 years old. This is my 1 terabyte hard disk, which I think cost 30 quid. I think this one cost 250. I'm probably still actually readable, but I haven't bothered turning it on for so long. Okay, I'll put that back up. So that's what the technology is. You want SSDs stand for solid state drives. They don't have any spinning components. They are now routinely used, but in the old days they were very, very expensive when they first came in. Make sure all Macs use SSDs as default. Make sure if you even have a cheap, make sure all laptops use an SSD, because that's a sensible thing to do. One thing about SSDs is they do have a limited amount of read writes, so the disk will eventually wear out. But I have never actually had that happen to any machine before I actually wanted to throw it away anyway. So that's something about disk technology. Good. Okay. So disk quotas. Now, where would we go there? Oh, I'm meant to be sharing. Where am I? Share. And I'm sharing desktop too. Okay. So just going here. So disk quotas, don't ask for a disk. So you will find where you work, there will often be something called a scratch file system. I hope that you may know about this already, but that's where you store files temporarily for work in general. Scratch systems are normally not backed up. You should never share code or anything important on a scratch file system. So it's called Scratch. If it goes, it goes. No one will bother. There won't be any backup. Sometimes there will be automatic processes to delete old files. So files when they get a month old, do not abuse, it will be unpopular. So just click on that link. So if I get that up there, this is an old University of Leicester one. So files within Scratch are not backed up. Furthermore, there is an automated process which deletes any files which haven't been accessed in more than 60 days. So the kind of thing there is, don't actually abuse those systems by updating files on an automated basis. This gets unpopular. Okay, so don't abuse them. So removing files. This, if you're fairly new to computing, may be a bit of a shock, but under Linux, if you RM a file, it's generally gone forever, okay, unless there's something special. So be very careful using RM-R. So that's, who knows what RM-R, to do the chat, or open people's mics or whatever. Who knows what RM-R does? No one's listening, or typing. Guess -R. Come on, have a chat. I don't. Okay, RM-R. I'll show you how to find out. Well, you haven't really done Linux yet, so it's a bit unfair. Oh, I won't show you. RM-R means recursive. Yeah. So it means delete this file. this file and delete and it's a way of deleting directories. And if you, I will have not put it up there, but if you do rm-r tilde, the tilde character, then that's a way of deleting all your files from a home area and all the files underneath. So that's the kind of thing which it's quite a good idea not to do. Okay. If you save a file, it normally overwrites the old one. There are older operating systems which actually automatically made backups, and sometimes something like Emacs will often, by default, make a backup copy .bck of a file or something, but by default, most commands will just overwrite the old file with the new file contents. You may choose to use a graphical file manager and move it to trash. Let's see what that is. Go. Tab. Find them. Okay, so I've got lots of documents there. There's a screenshot, and I can say, I would be able to say, what do I do? Where's move to trash? Yeah, should be somewhere there. I can't see it on the menu, but probably I can even do yeah, move to bin, rename. That's stupid, isn't it?
Set up time machine in system preferences. Click on the Apple menu. Click System Preferences. Then click Time Machine.
So sorry about that. There is a move to trash somewhere, which I use all the time, and I've lost it. But anyway, that's how you, that's, oh yeah, so you, there's a, oh, I can remember. I am an idiot. There is a trash bin there, and I pull it down and put it there. Yeah. So that means that it moves to a bin, and then I can get it out of the bin. So that's not part of Linux. Let me get my command team and get back to PowerPoint with any luck. There we are. So what happens if you accidentally remove or overwrite a file? And this is, if you're kind of a new user, don't panic too much, because normally there will be some kind of backup process. And it happens sufficiently often that a lot of places have things called snapshotting file systems. So the nice systems people will actually set up some kind of file systems where hourly, nightly, and weekly backups often are available automatically. So at EBI, we had one of these, and I found that around 60% of people had never even heard of this, despite the fact that actually an enormous amount of effort had been put to do something really good. How these snapshotting file systems work varies. So, okay, with any luck, I should be able to do that. So this is one, I just looked on the internet. This one looks rather like the one in the one at EBI. I don't know what the technology is, but you had a special directory called .snapshot. And by default, you don't see dot files on Unix file systems, and those you do, so they're kind of hidden files. So there was a special directory called .snapshot, and then it had these things which were nightly and hourly 1, nightly 5. So it was so the nightly 0 is October the 15th there, the nightly 4 is October the 10th, so the nightly 5 is October the 5th. So you can actually start to see the old versions of that file which vary in size, so that file has changed. So it's very useful to know about those things. So that may not exist. Otherwise, you can ask your nice systems people whether they could restore the old file from some kind of backup. And when I was doing systems for a small company, we had a user who was very good at making sure that our backup system was exercised, because they used to delete things left, right, and center. So we made sure that the tape drive was working we didn't have to put it in the diary to make sure the backup was still actually viable. It was done on an almost monthly basis that we had to get the tapes out. For Macs, there is a very useful utility called Time Machine. And I showed you this external hard drive. Okay, that's part of Time Machine. So every time I plug my Mac in, with any luck, oh, I can't see the top menu. That's annoying. Oh, well, it's really, really annoying. Oh no, yes I can. So there's a little clocky thing, and I hope everyone can see that. Yeah. Okay. Then I can't say enter Time Machine because you won't be able to see that. Oh, I don't know whether you'll be able to see that or not. Let me have a look. I suspect not. No, I suspect that isn't going to work. So you can't see it, but basically this thing is telling me that the latest backup is available at 10 past 11, and it allows you to see lots of old files. I'm not it. Yeah, I can't. That probably wasn't wise. I will hit cancel. It's not the kind of thing which I can actually show in thing, but it's actually a thing which enables you to scroll back in time and see old versions of files. So it's well worth, if you've got a Mac, it's just external hard drives are pretty cheap. It's very quick to set up. Let me get back to full screen. And you can go onto YouTube and click there, and it takes a couple of minutes to set up. One thing you have to remember is that when you disconnect your Mac, you should first eject the hard drive, because otherwise it complains all the time, and it's always a good idea to disconnect the drive first. Okay, so that was my little run through on that. Did anyone find that useful? I should probably go into this. Actually, oh well. Yeah, let's try to do something. Okay, Martin has suggested that I use a polling thing. Okay. Did you find that useful? Single choice, yes or no. And then I say save. And then I say launch poll. So you're meant to vote. Check yours. 3 yes. Yeah. And 0 no so far. How many people are here? So Martin, yeah, I don't know who voted and who didn't. Yes. So yeah, I only assume 4 people. Am I fine? Oh, actually, I'm one of them. Yes. I shall vote no on my phone. It's very naughty, isn't it? Yes. Oh, good. So anyway, that was my little take. It's got on that disk activity, and to just have a little look and think about. We have to be aware when we're doing computing that disks and file systems and backups do not come from the fairies. There is someone in the systems team who will someone in the systems teams provide all this stuff, and it's important that you make sure that you kind of know how to operate in the system in the environment you're about, and not be unpopular because you've filled up the disk that everyone else has to use. Oh, there is actually one other crucial piece of information which I had forgotten, and it just occurs to me. Okay, with any luck, I should be able to share my desktop one. I don't know. This is my desktop 2, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. let's make that big. So df minus h. So there are lots of other things. So you can get all these things for Macs. You can use Finder and see how full disks are. But df minus h, you're going to learn some Linux, so this is a bit of advanced. But df minus h tells you how full your file systems are. Okay. So in this case, what have I got? I've got a, which is so here. So I appear to have a disk which is systems volume data, which is at 61% capacity. Okay, so everything is reasonable. I've got 85 gigabytes available. Okay, and it doesn't tell you how much free I've got, but I mean that must be. So I'm quite. Oh no, that is the amount of free. Used 131 gigabytes, free 85 gigabytes. One thing which must be said is that the this number is quite important. So when you start filling up disks, if they go above about 90% full, very often your system's performance drops drastically, particularly if you're writing big files of any description. The reason being the system has to go and find free space. If you imagine it's a bit like them fitting into a lecture theatre, which you must be doing in Core Biology 1, when you go in, the fact that there are 200 of you, or odd, and the lecture theatres, if they are about at near capacity, it's very difficult to find a free seat. It's exactly the same thing happens on a disk. So sometimes disks are even stopped that they kind of fill up at 95% because getting into 100% is almost impossible to do. But that's why if you find small companies, very often they don't have proper disk, they don't have proper rules about disks. You'll get someone and they fill all the bloody disks, and that actually reduces the ability of everyone to work. So do not operate with above 90% capacity on your disks. Yeah, that's my other little bit of wisdom about disks. Now, this may not mean a lot to you, but then if you get confused in the future, you can always come to one of those drop-ins and you can ask me about it. I can give you my possibly. Oh, I probably didn't hit share, did I? And I'm not looking. So sorry, I need to get into the habit of looking to make sure I know what's going out. So I was showing you df minus h and looking at these numbers. So my main thing where my home is, this is kind of a arbitrary thing, is at 61% capacity. Good. Okay, now let me think. I need to then look at what we're meant to be doing now. So the data storage survey went very well. Thank you very much. Okay, and now I need to look at discussions. Where do I go? Okay. I can get out of that. I'll put these slides up. I'll hit save because otherwise I will lose everything. And I'll put these slides up on the page later. Then I go home and I crack on. Okay, so where are we? We are week 4. And the one thing I must say, I don't know how many people are here, but the Python reference cards so far, I think Simon's done a reasonable job. I think the other ones, we really do need to actually produce one yourself. I will put some comments on that. That's this week's work. Otherwise, everyone seems to be doing well there. I'm going to be catching up with the marking this weekend and put stuff forward. What am I meant to be doing? A review of last week's activities. I think that, okay, I could just do another poll. Let's have a look at last week's activities. Actually, maybe I should have that over there. Last week's activities, home, week 4, week 3. So, oh yes, there was an activity which was looking at big data. And I'm going to start one of those polls again. Whee! Don't know, how do I do that? End poll. And then I go, can I do a poll? Polling, new poll. Okay. Share results. Yeah, there we are. Polling. Stop sharing. Okay, so that's all right. So how do I do a new poll? This software is slightly confusing. Okay, if I say stop share, then I can probably have a poll. No. Edit. No. You created one. Oh, I say add. And I say, did you find the idea big data useful? I should do this for Ashley. Multiple choice, and I'm going to answer yes or no. I should hit save. And then I will get confused. Okay. Edit. No. Okay, sorry, you can't have a poll because I can't work it out. I can't do it. I still need to get familiar. This software is slightly more complicated than it looks. Okay, how long have we got? 20 minutes. So the big data stuff, I hope that you find quite useful. Do have a look at the set book. It's got quite a lot on that. The AI winter, let's have a little look at that. Open recent. Okay, let's go back. Okay, so we got that. Now, actually, let's look at that. Independent learning, range. Okay, actually, yeah, I think that's probably the most useful thing to show with you. So I hit share again, and I say desktop to share. So the learning outcomes, I think, are the important thing there. So you really should be able to distinguish between structured, unstructured, and semi-structured data. So understand that there is metadata. So even things like videos, that they have important data which is associated with them, which is fairly easy to read and work out use. Understand the concept of big data and the 4 V's, so which I hope I can remember. So it's not only volume. So anyone in the chat, someone remind me what the 4 V's are. I can remember at least one of them. I can actually remember all of them. Can anyone beat me in the chat? I'm typing volume. No. Volume. Yay, well done. So volume, variety, velocity, and veracity. I think that some of these words are picked because they begin with V. So veracity is not a word which I commonly use myself, but truthfulness. But it is extremely important. So you have to look at whether the data, always you have to look at whether data, particularly if it's large, is biased, is the thing that you need to, is the thing is actually reflecting the stuff that you need to, that you want to look at. And I was actually, I'll share the link I'm on this page, but I was looking at an interesting thing this morning, which was just even pointing out that Google Translate tends to be sexist on the, so in the French language, you have male and female, and you have to be careful about the pronouns. And it's trained on enormous quantities of data, which uses the male one all the time. So the female one never comes over, even if when it's appropriate, which I thought was just an interesting example of how you actually, unless people are careful, and it's not deliberate, any of this, people don't deliberately do it, but that you actually could quite often end up with things which are, everything is based on use of English rather than any other languages, male data sets. I mean, the whole world is biased towards males in terms of, even my wife points out that the kitchen cupboards, no one can reach the kitchen cupboards because they're all set up that I can reach everything, but no one else can. If you're female, you can't reach the cupboards, you can't do that. But anyway, so that bias certainly comes over. And then just something about AI with, so what is artificial intelligence and machine learning? I probably should have put supervised and unsupervised. I think that's a very important category. So go and have a look at the book. I think we'll send a reminder of that. And a brief history of the outline of AI winters and the Gartner hype cycle. So all of this stuff, you see everything as it's going to solve everything, or the whole world will be dystopian, or so there's a lot of sort of slightly overblown, I think, expectations. Okay, now the one other thing that I was just going to do, and this may be, this is completely winging it, but I will actually, I thought it was a useful thing, and I will actually try everything out of this window, and then I can hopefully do some useful. So we're going to be doing some Linux. Okay, so while I'm, well, actually, I probably should just stick a window in there. While I'm mucking about with my windows, of which I've got far too many, anyone will do. Okay, let's have another full screen. There are a couple of announcements. We'll announce again in Monday, but on Monday, you're going to actually, rather than having a PDT tutorial, you're going to go to a research seminar on citizen science and squids. So you, I'll send an announcement out part that, but that's actually your PDT will be to go to a biology research seminar, because I think it will do you good. And next semester, trimester, you are going to be doing a little project, which hopefully you'll be using citizen science data. Not the same ones, because this seminar, I believe, is to do with videoing squids. And you're going to be looking at still images, but you probably will find it quite complicated. However, I think it's still useful for you to see that there's enormous amounts of data processing and analytics, even done, sorry, that's the wrong word, done by people including zoologists. I don't think I've ever seen a seminar from a zoologist, so it's going to be new for me as well. Okay, so what was I going to do? Let's see. What I was going to try to do was go over there, and I was going to actually go. So what I'm going to do, with any luck, is okay, and I'm going to start a new notebook. So I'm running a local copy of a Jupyter Notebook, rather than doing it through whatchamacallit, Azure, on the grounds that I want to make sure it runs and I don't have to wait for things. So I just wanted to quickly go through something about printing, because I'm making I noticed I was using some old, rather naughty Python. That's probably the wrong word, but Python, which I probably shouldn't be showing you. Where's that? Okay. Yeah, I've got some in notes. I'm just going to get my notes about what I thought I would do. Okay. Good. Okay. Okay. So you've been doing a lot of printing in Python, and you've got printing, let's say, my plus a, for instance. Say a equals 5. And you've been doing a lot of stuff like that. Okay. Let's say a equals foo, and that should run. And I think that's from data camp, but if we actually had that and we had a equals 5, and then we actually had print my a, it should give me an error, type error. Okay. So it can't concatenate strings. So this is kind of good because they're trying to encourage you to think of printing prints a string. Okay. And so then you actually then go and do something like print str a. Okay. And we're using concatenation between the two. I should have another bracket there. Okay. So that my 5, that prints all right. Just to say, sometimes you can another way you can do that is to print my a, space to be standard. And so print, you can actually have multiple arguments, okay? And you can actually, if those arguments are processed, and by default it will produce a space after each one of those arguments. Okay, I can't remember how you can turn off the space, but I can remember how I can find out. So Python has a help mechanism, and I run that and it says help print. So actually, to change the separator is the string inserted between values default to space. So I'm going to try that and to see whether I can get my 5 with no space. So if I do print, okay, and I'm going to use a separator, and I'm going to use a separator which is no space. And then I will run that, and it says my 5. So that's all well and good. There's a way of doing this stuff, and it's quite reasonable. Okay. However, if I said okay, name is 5 and name is my age is 21, of course, and my name is Oliver. Okay. And I wanted to print a string which is print my name is plus name. And I'm going to do 21 plus 1 over 3 because I'm slightly older now. Plus, and my name is age is H. See what that does. Okay, so it's producing this thing. The number of spaces has gone a bit wrong. It's all rather ugly as well because I can't see what's going on. Okay, so there is a thing, and there is a Python formatting. Okay, now let me crack on quickly. So I just want to show you the modern way of doing Python formatting. Okay, so I'll just quickly do this, and then I'll let everyone go in peace. Okay, so these things are called F strings. And so my name is, and I put a curly brackets, and the color goes funny, name. My age is age. Okay, so the F string means this is still a string, but it's got some clever stuff that allows you to put variable names in it. Okay. The other thing that F strings, it's called a formatting string. Then you can do special things to control. So for instance here, if we wanted to print that, this is really ugly with this, the way you would actually probably be encouraged by DataCamp to produce something which is more reasonable would be to use a round function. So you round age to 2 decimal places, say. Apart from the fact that you need another curly brackets. But that's pretty ugly, okay? It's not easy to read, okay? The way you deal this in F strings is that you use a colon, and I'm gonna hopefully get this right, 0.2F. So that means a floating number and give me 2 decimal places, okay? And it produces something which is much more readable. So that's an F string. The things that you should ignore that I've put, and I noticed when I was marking things, I'm sorry about this, there is an older way of doing things. It's rather ugly. This is the old way. My name is curly brackets. Isn't that right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, my name is my age is dr, and dot format name age. That's the old way of doing it. It's much worse than F strings, because to read it, I say my name is Bert, and then I have to look for the format and I have to work out it goes there. So don't use that one. That's the thing. The other thing you may also see occasionally is, unfortunately, there was a really even or more awful one in Python 2. So my name is %s, my age is, I can't remember what is %f, percent, I can't remember, it's such a long line, name age. Okay, not enough, I think actually, and then I need another bracket. You used to write in Python 2, yeah. So if you see that, it's the old way of doing it. You may have to maintain other people's code. That's what it is. This one shouldn't be used at all. It's extremely poor. Okay? And then I would just leave you with something which I think I've shown you before, which is the Zen of Python, which is what we're meant to be. These are kind of guides. There's some jokes in here, maybe not very funny ones. The Zen of Python, which is some of the ideas, and some of them are extremely important, which is, you know, beautiful is better than ugly. Yeah? Explicit is better than implicit. Okay. The real joke is, I think, is there should be one, and preferably only one, obvious way to do it. Yeah. Obviously, that actually never happens in Python, but particularly Python formatting is an example where actually the one advantage there is that actually you don't want to only have one way of doing it. If you've got the poor way of doing it, now we've got a good way of doing it. Formatting is always a nightmare in whichever language you're there. In Fortran, the first language I did, it was a particular nightmare, really very difficult to do. now Python actually has a very nice, and these F strings can be used for far more. You can actually have expressions in them, maybe not a good idea. You can say whether the things are left or right character. If I'm allowed to burble on for one thing, I really like, I hope I can get this right. If we say big equals 1,000, so I think that might be a billion, and then I say print F string big, I think I'm allowed to do that, but I may be wrong. No. So it's, how do I do point D comma? Can't remember. Oh no, I haven't closed my string literal. I've got an extra thing. Okay, let me see. Okay, yes, I managed to do it. So one thing I've liked, and I've never been able to do this in any language before that I've known about, maybe I should have, but you can, so one thing when you're dealing with big numbers is that it's quite common in science, you use a comma to separate the zeros. And so you see this is print this big number, and I want to have commas in it. I really like that. I think that's really smart. Anyway, okie dokie. So if anyone wants to chat, I'll open everyone's microphone, chat on the thingies, on the things. So it's nice that everyone could, so has everyone signed in to the topic thing? So that's the wrong one. And thank you for bearing with me. God, where's it gone? While I get used to doing these webinars, which is an interesting experience. Good. So there we are. Has everyone signed in? We have a David. We have Joseph, who is there possibly, and okay, Charles, Beth, and Chris somewhere. Okay. Oh, and Saffron. Okay, Saffron, can you sign in, please? So you sign into this discussion page, and then this is all about ensuring that the data is accurate. So we need to know. So this is the equivalent of tapping in. Yeah. So we are required to record all these things. And the one thing which I must say I find quite difficult about Zoom is it doesn't actually give you a report about who joined, or even their usernames, which I was looking for everywhere, and then I couldn't work out working out who had joined. So thank you very much. Before you go, chat bye, unless you've drifted off and you're eating lunch already. Oh, perhaps I should stop sharing so you could see me. There we are. Thank you for joining. Everyone have a nice weekend. We will see you on Monday, and I will be trying to get everything marked and all the material up for next week. And thank you for bearing with us. And you can look forward to some action videos of squid. It might be scary. So I don't know whether you're allowed to bring popcorn.